Last Tuesday, I stood in the produce aisle at Kroger for 3 full minutes. Not because I couldn't find anything, because I was doing math. A pint of blueberries. $7.99. Picked it up. Put it back. Picked it up again. The woman next to me grabbed 2 without glancing at the price. I used to be that person. I put it back. Drove home. Went to the backyard. Picked blueberries off 2 bushes I planted 4 years ago for $44 total. Sat at the kitchen table and thought about what just happened. I have been paying $7.99 a pint, week after week, for a fruit that grows wild in 45 states. That is native to this continent. That needs almost zero care once it's established. And somewhere along the way, not because anyone hid it from us. Just because modern life made it easier to buy than to grow. Most of us quietly forgot that we could just plant it. Not just blueberries. 8 plants. 8 categories of food I was buying every week at prices that kept climbing from supply chains I have zero control over. All 8 are perennials. You plant once. They come back every year. Getting more productive, not less. Some of them will outlive me. One of them might outlive my children. Today I'll show you all 8. The history, the honest numbers, and the things I wish someone had told me before I started. The real setup costs, the real timelines, what actually goes wrong, no shortcuts, no cherry-picked math. Just what it actually looks like to build a backyard that feeds you. Let's start. Here's something that should bother you. Blueberries are one of the only major commercial fruits entirely native to North America, growing wild on this continent for thousands of years. The Ojibwe called them mianin, ate them fresh, dried them for winter, used them medicinally. And now we pay $8 for a pint of them. The commercial highbush blueberry industry was invented in New Jersey in 1916. A USDA botanist named Frederick Colville spent a decade figuring out why blueberry cuttings kept dying when people tried to cultivate them. The answer: soil, pH. Blueberries need acidic soil, 4.5 to 5.5. Regular garden soil sits around 6.5 to 7.0. Plant them in wrong soil and they starve slowly. Yellow. Stop producing. Die. Most people who fail at blueberries blame the plant. The plant is not the problem. Colville partnered with a New Jersey cranberry farmer named Elizabeth Coleman White. In 1916, they planted the first intentional commercial highbush blueberry farm. The $1.7 billion annual blueberry industry was built on one piece of soil chemistry. Fix the pH. The plant does the rest. A mature highbush bush produces 10 to 20 pounds per year. Meaningful harvest by year 3. Full production by year 5. Keeps producing for 30 to 50 years. Now let me give you the honest investment math, not the inspiring version. The actual version. 2 bushes for cross-pollination, $50. pH adjustment, sulfur worked into the soil before planting, $15. Pine needle mulch, maintained annually, $10 to $15 a year. Blueberry fertilizer, applied twice a year, $20 per year. And here's the one most guides leave out: bird netting. If you do not protect your blueberries from birds, you will not have blueberries. Robins, mockingbirds, and cedar waxwings know exactly when blueberries peak. They will clean out your entire harvest in 48 hours before you realize it's time. A proper cage with PVC frame and bird netting for 2 bushes, $40 to $60. You build it once. it lasts. So the real first-year investment is $135 to $155, not $50. Still a trivial number for what you get in return. At 15 pounds combined from 2 mature bushes. Conservative, at $8 a pint. That's $120 worth of blueberries in year 3. By year 5, $200 to $240. Every season. For 30 more years after that, the payback period is 3 to 4 seasons. Everything after that is profit. One critical note on pH. It's not a one-time fix. Check it every 2 years. Rain leaches acidity. You'll need to reapply sulfur or mulch with pine needles to maintain the range. Varieties: Blue Crop and Blue Ray for zones 4 through 7. O'Neill or Emerald for the south. Plant both in the same bed. Bonus tip: plant slightly elevated, a few inches above grade. Blueberries hate wet feet. Elevated planting solves drainage before it's a problem. $5.99 a pound. Available for maybe 8 weeks in spring. And the moment asparagus is cut, sugars convert to starch. By day 2, it's woody. By day 4, it's what you've had at Bad Buffy's. What's in the store was cut 3 or 4 days ago. Shipped. Refrigerated. When you cut asparagus in the morning and eat it at dinner, it snaps. It's almost sweet. People who taste garden asparagus for the first time don't believe it's the same vegetable. Thomas Jefferson had a dedicated asparagus bed at Monticello. His garden book records asparagus appearing at his table on March 23, 1794. By 1812, he had 7 separate asparagus beds. George Washington was growing it at Mount Vernon in 1785. These were practical men who understood something simple. Asparagus is reliable. It comes up in early spring when nothing else is ready. It arrives every year and on its own, without replanting. The Romans understood it too. Emperor Augustus's expression for doing something fast was velocius quam asparagi coquantur. Faster than you cook asparagus. That idiom existed because asparagus was constantly on Roman tables. A 10-foot bed, 12 to 15 crowns, produces 8 to 10 pounds of spears every spring for 20 to 25 years. At $5.99 a pound. $48 to $60 worth of asparagus annually. From a bed you plant once for $25 in crowns. The catch everyone knows, but most guides understate. Year 1 is invisible. You plant the crowns. You get nothing edible. Nothing. You let the fronds grow all summer and you leave them entirely alone. Those feathery fronds, they'll grow 4 to 5 feet tall, are photosynthesizing, building a root system that can eventually reach 6 feet deep. You're not planting a vegetable. You're building infrastructure. Year 2, harvest lightly. Year 3 and beyond, harvest freely. This requires genuine patience, not skill, patience. 2 years of watching a plant grow and not eating it, in exchange for 20-plus years of asparagus that appears every spring without you doing anything. Space note, those tall summer fronds are real. By July, your asparagus bed is a screen of feathery green, 4 to 5 feet high, planted on the north side of your garden. Otherwise, it will shade everything else from midsummer on. This is a placement decision you cannot undo. Best varieties? Jersey Night and Jersey Supreme. All male plants. No seed production. All energy goes to spears. More asparagus. Less work. Bonus tip. Cut the fronds down every fall and compost them immediately. Asparagus beetles overwinter in standing stalks. One task in November eliminates most pest pressure for the following spring. $28 for elderberry syrup. $35 for dried elderberries, 4 ounces. That's $140 a pound. The wellness supplement industry has built significant business around this plant. And every claim they make is accurate. Immune support, traditional use, centuries of history, Hippocrates, around 400 BC. Called elderberry his medicine chest. Those are his documented words. A 2016 peer-reviewed study in the journal Nutrients found elderberry extract reduced flu duration by an average of 4 days versus placebo. 4 days faster recovery. From a plant that grows in your backyard, you can grow it. For $25 per shrub, elderberry grows in zones 3 through 9, roughly 90% of the continental U.S. Tolerates partial shade. Handles drought once established. A mature shrub produces 12 to 15 pounds of berries per year. From 15 pounds, you can make 6 months of elderberry syrup at typical dosing. About $168 worth at store prices. Plus elderflower cordial in June before the berries even form. The flowers are equally medicinal and can't be purchased. I need to be honest about something most elderberry content glosses over. The plants get big. At maturity, elderberry shrubs reach 8 to 12 feet tall and nearly as wide. 2 shrubs at full size. Occupy real estate. In a small suburban backyard, 2 mature elderberries will dominate a corner. That's fine if you plan for it. Not fine if you don't. Plant them along a fence line or property edge where their size becomes a privacy screen. Not in the middle of a small garden bed. You need 2 varieties for cross-pollination. Bob and Nova are the standard pairing. They start producing in year 2. Full production by year 3. If they get too tall, cut them to the ground in late winter. They'll regrow from the base and come back more productive. Elderberry is one of the few large shrubs that tolerates hard renewal pruning annually. Making elderberry syrup at home takes 30 minutes. Simmer berries with water, cinnamon, cloves, ginger. Strain. Cool below 100 degrees. Stir in raw honey. Heat destroys honey's enzymes. Bottle. Refrigerate. That is exactly what a $28 bottle contains. You made it for 60 cents. 2 warnings. Raw elderberries cause nausea. Always cook them. Heat neutralizes the compound. And don't wait for full ripeness. Harvest clusters at 80% dark purple. Birds will strip a fully ripe shrub overnight. Bonus tip. The elderflower clusters that appear in June smell of lychee and muscat. Make elderflower cordial. Cluster steeped in sugar syrup with lemon. This product sells for $18 a bottle at farmers markets. You can't buy fresh elderflowers anywhere. They're yours. And they're free. $5.99 for half a pound of raspberries that'll be soft by day 2. Commercial raspberries are picked underripe. They have to be. A berry that ripens to peak flavor on the cane in July is mush by the time it reaches a store in Ohio. Growers pick early, pack cold, ship. What you're buying is a berry that was never allowed to be what a raspberry is. Here's what ripe off the cane feels like. It releases with 0 resistance. It's warm. It has brightness, floral tartness, then sweetness. You cannot ship that. You can only grow it. Now here's the biology of brambles that most guides skip because it sounds complicated but is actually very simple once you understand it. Raspberry canes are biennial above ground, perennial in the root. Year 1, a new cane called a primo cane grows and leafs out. No fruit. Year 2, that same cane, now called a florican, flowers and fruits. Then it dies. Meanwhile, new primo canes are already growing at the base. Management is one task. Every fall, cut out the dead canes, the ones that fruited, and leave the green ones. That's the entire system. One pass with pruning shears in October. A 10-foot row produces 10 to 15 pounds of raspberries per season for 15 to 20 years. Now, here's what guides usually leave out about growing brambles. You need a trellis. Raspberry and blackberry canes grow 4 to 6 feet tall and flop over without support. Flopped canes don't produce well, drag fruit in the mud, and become an impenetrable mess within 2 seasons. A proper 2-wire trellis. T-posts every 8 feet. 2 horizontal wires at 2.5 feet and 5 feet. Running the length of your row costs $80 to $120. Not optional. Build it before you plant, and brambles spread. This is the most important thing to understand before planting. A raspberry planting sends new canes up from its roots, sometimes 3 feet away from where you planted. This is normal. This is what the plant does. If you don't want this, plant in a raised bed with barriers, or install a root barrier extending 18 inches down around the planting. If you're fine with managing the spread, let it go. You'll have more plants every year for free, but you need to know it's coming. For blackberries, thornless varieties only. Triple Crown, Chester, Apache. Triple Crown, released by the USDA in 1996, produces large, complex berries with 0 thorns and strong disease resistance. Same remarkable flavor. No blood involved. Bonus tip: plant both summer-bearing and ever-bearing raspberries together. Summer-bearing, heavy crop in July. Ever-bearing, lighter crop in July and a second wave in September. Together. Fresh raspberries from June through October. Quick pause before we continue. I want to address something directly. These first 4 plants represent real money, especially up front. Blueberry bushes with bird netting and pH kit, $135. Asparagus crowns, $25 plus 2 years before full harvest. 2 elderberry shrubs, $50 plus they'll dominate real estate. Bramble row with trellis, $150. Realistic setup, $350 to $400. Not $120. That investment pays back. Year 5, you're likely pulling $400 to $600 in food value. By year 10, $800 to $1,000 annually. But year 1 is demanding. You're building, not harvesting. The people who fail at perennials fail here. Not because plants died, but because effort went in without visible return. And they stopped. Think of year 1 as purchasing a multi-decade annuity. You're not gardening. You're making a one-time investment that compounds for decades. Keep that frame. It changes everything. Comment below. Which of the first 4 do you have? 4 more. Let's keep going. In 1542, rhubarb root was worth 10 times more than cinnamon, 4 times the value of saffron. By the 1600s, it had become more expensive than opium. Not more expensive than silver or wheat, more expensive than opium, then the most profitable drug in the European market. Shakespeare wrote it into Macbeth. What rhubarb, senna? Or what purgative drug would scour these English hence? His audience knew immediately. Rhubarb was such a well-known powerful medicine that using it as a metaphor required zero explanation. Henry VIII's minister Thomas Cromwell received a rhubarb root as a significant gift. As in, I am sending you something valuable. A root from a plant. The best medicinal rhubarb root, dried, powdered. Used as a purgative, came from China. Traveled the Silk Road through Russia. And was controlled by a Tsarist monopoly from 1657 to 1781. The Tsar of Russia held a monopoly on rhubarb. Think about the plant in your neighbor's backyard. The one nobody touches. The one that just keeps coming back every spring. A Tsarist monopoly. It wasn't used as food until sugar became affordable in the 1800s. Before sugar, nobody put it in pies. The tartness was unpleasant without sweetener. Once sugar arrived, colonial Americans called it the pie plant. And every homestead planted a crown. Passed down through families. Some people grow rhubarb today from crowns divided off plants their grandparents grew. A living connection to someone's garden from 80 years ago. The numbers today: $5.99 a pound at the store. Available 6 weeks. Days. A single crown produces 4 to 8 pounds of stalks per spring. $24 to $48 worth every year. For 20 to 30 years without being divided. Plant cost $9. Uses beyond pie, jam, chutney, sauce for duck and pork. Rhubarb simple syrup for cocktails, which sells for $12 a bottle at farmers markets if you have surplus. And rhubarb asks for almost nothing. Cold tolerance most vegetables can't match. Almost no pest pressure. Insects avoid oxalic acid. No fertilizer needed if your soil has any organic matter. Plant in full sun with good drainage. Don't harvest year 1. Never take more than 1/3 of the stalks at once. The leaves must remain to feed the crown for next season. One warning, the leaves are toxic. Oxalic acid. Stalks only. Non-negotiable. Obvious once you know it. Dangerous if you forget it. Bonus tip. When rhubarb sends up a flower stalk in late spring, a thick central column, cut it immediately. Flowering exhausts the crown's reserves. That energy belongs in your stalks, not in seeds you'll never use. Cut it every year. For 25 years, $3.99 to $5.99. For one artichoke. Dinner for 2 needs 2 or 3. That's $8 to $18 for one side dish. No wonder artichokes feel like a special occasion vegetable. Here's the supply chain behind that price. 99% of commercially grown artichokes in the United States come from one county, Monterey County, California. Not one region. One county. The entire American artichoke supply depends on a narrow strip of coastal California with a specific microclimate. Cool. Foggy summers, mild winters, almost no frost. Drought in Monterey. Your price spikes. Labor disruption. Your price spikes. Anything that affects that one county affects what you pay in Minnesota, in Italy. Families grow artichokes the way we grow tomatoes. In Greece. In Spain. Thomas Jefferson grew them at Monticello. His garden book records artichoke cultivation beginning in the 1770s. Then American agriculture industrialized. Concentrated production in one geography. And artichokes became a product you purchase rather than a plant you grow. A single mature artichoke produces 6 to 9 artichokes per year, starting in year 2. The plant grows more productive each year for 5 to 10 years. Then you divide it. But here's where I need to be honest with you about zones. In zones 7 through 10, the Pacific Coast, California, Texas, the Southeast, artichokes are genuinely perennial. Cut back in fall. Mulch. They come back. Plant once. Harvest for a decade. In zones 5 and 6, the Midwest. The Northeast, I have to be straightforward. This is not a reliable perennial. Heavy mulching helps. 6 to 8 inches of straw over the crown before first frost. But wet. Freezing soil causes crown rot, which is often more damaging than the cold itself. Zone 5 and 6 growers should treat artichokes as a high-risk perennial, possibly annual, and budget accordingly. A $10 plant that survives 3 winters paid for itself many times over. A $10 plant that crowns out every winter still gave you fruit in fall. Know which scenario you're in before you plant. Imperial Star is the best bet for colder zones. It produces in year 1 from seed or start. So you get a harvest even if it doesn't overwinter. Green Globe for zones 7 and warmer. Most productive, most forgiving. Let at least 1 artichoke per plant go to flower each year. The blossom is an enormous purple thistle, one of the most dramatic garden flowers you can grow. Pollinators cover it. Your neighbors will ask what it is. You'll say, "That's my artichoke." And they'll look at you like you know something they don't. You do. Bonus tip. The small side artichokes at the base of the main stalk get ignored by most beginners. Harvest them young, 2 to 3 inches across. At that size, the whole artichoke is tender. No choke to remove. Some people find them more flavorful than the main head. $8.99 for a small jar that is mostly water, vinegar, and filler. Read the label. Water, vinegar, grated horseradish, salt. You paid $8.99 for a condiment that is 80% water and vinegar, made from a plant that farmers in one region of Illinois literally cannot eliminate. The area around Collinsville. Illinois produces approximately 60% of the world's horseradish supply. 60% of the entire world's supply. From one stretch of the Mississippi River Valley in southern Illinois. They grow it there because the soil is ideal, and because once horseradish establishes in that soil, it is essentially impossible to fully eradicate. Any fragment of root left behind becomes a new plant. Any piece. Illinois horseradish farmers don't plant horseradish every year. They manage the spread. Now the history and horseradish is one of the 5 bitter herbs consumed at the Jewish Passover Seder. That tradition is documented continuously for over 3,000 years. The Mishnah, compiled around 200 AD but recording far older practices, lists horseradish as representing the bitterness of slavery in Egypt. Ancient Greek physicians documented it. Egyptian medical texts mention it. Pliny the Elder described its cultivation in the 1st century AD. 3,000 years of intentional human cultivation. And then, in 20th century America, we stopped growing it and started buying it in a jar. The economics of growing your own. 1 root planted in spring, $4 to $6. By fall, a cluster of roots, 2 to 4 pounds. Leave 20% in the ground. That's next year's plant. From 3 pounds of fresh root. 8 to 10 jars of prepared horseradish. At $9 a jar. $72 to $90. From a $5 root that regenerates automatically. The one rule: give it contained space. A raised bed with deep edging. A large barrel. A dedicated spot with 18-inch deep barriers around it. Don't plant horseradish in an open garden bed unless you are ready for it to slowly colonize the area. It will try. That's not a defect. It's the plant being exactly what it is. Contain it from the start and you have a permanent, self-renewing supply. Harvest after first frost. Cold concentrates the glucosinolates, the sulfur compounds that create the bite. Pre-frost horseradish is mild. Post-frost horseradish bites. Grated outdoors. Volatile compounds released during grating are not dangerous. But in a closed kitchen, they will make your eyes water immediately. You have been warned. Bonus tip: fresh grated horseradish mixed with equal parts good mayonnaise, a squeeze of lemon, a few drops of hot sauce. 5 minutes. Nothing in a jar compares. In Concord, Massachusetts, in 1843, a man named Ephraim Wales Bull began an experiment. He was a city boy, trained as a gold beater in Boston, making gold leaf for bookbinders, who had moved to Concord because his doctor said his lungs needed air. His farm sat next door to Bronson Alcott, down the road from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who grew grapes in his own yard. A short walk from Thoreau, from Hawthorne, and Ephraim Wales Bull was in his garden planting grape seeds. Not a few, 22,000 seedlings. He spent 6 years evaluating 22,000 seedlings, looking for a grape that could ripen before New England's killing frosts. European wine grapes died in Massachusetts winters. Nothing from Native American species was good enough. In fall 1849, one vine produced what he was looking for: sweet, complex, hardy, beautiful blue-black clusters. He named it after the town, Concord. Thoreau wrote in his journal about smelling the grape blossoms as he walked past Bull's property. Something transcendental in the scent. He noted his neighbor's experiment drifting over the fence. By 1853, the Concord was for sale. By 1854, it was a bestseller nationwide. Then in 1869, 20 years later, a teetotaling New Jersey dentist named Thomas Welch took 40 pounds of Concord grapes from his front yard, cooked and strained the juice, boiled the sealed bottles to prevent fermentation, applying pasteurization methods Pasteur had just published, and called it Dr. Welch's unfermented wine. The church wasn't interested. America was every bottle of Welch's, every grape Jolly Rancher, every PB&J for 150 years. Sacramental communion in American churches since 1869. All of it from 22,000 seedlings on one farm in Concord, Massachusetts. Here's the tragedy of that story. Ephraim Wales' bull died poor. The vines sold for $5 each. Nurserymen bought them, propagated them, sold them freely. No plant variety protections existed in 1854. He spent his final years watching the industry he created make fortunes for everyone but him. His tombstone at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in Concord reads, "He sowed. Others reaped." The original Concord grapevine is still growing in the yard of Grapevine Cottage in Concord, Massachusetts. Still alive. Still fruiting. Welch's sends people to take cuttings from it occasionally. A vine planted in 1849. That is what a grapevine is. The oldest documented producing grapevine in the U.S. was planted in Amador County, California in 1861. It still bears fruit. You will not outlive a healthy grapevine you plant today. Your children may not either. A mature vine. 15 to 30 pounds of grapes per year. Year 3. First meaningful harvest. Year 5. Full production. At $3.99 to $4.99 a pound for table grapes. 2 vines yield $120 to $300 annually. 2 plants, $60 each. Payback, 3 seasons. Production window, your lifetime. Now I need to say something about how grapevines get presented in American gardening. They're almost always framed as a wine project. That framing is intimidating. Barrels, chemistry, complexity. And it keeps most people from ever planting one. Table grapes for eating, for juice, for jelly. For putting in a bowl, require no winemaking equipment. Just plant, prune, harvest. For fresh eating, Reliance seedless, cold hardy to zone 4. Himrod seedless, or Concord seedless. All 3 produce excellent fruit, thin skins, no seeds. For the South, zones 7 to 10. Muscadines, native to the Southeast. Bronze and fry varieties for fresh eating. Drought tolerant. Disease-resistant, deeply regional. Now, what it actually takes to grow grapes well. Annual pruning is non-negotiable. An unpruned vine produces mostly vine. Very little fruit. Prune in late February. Remove 90% of last year's growth. Keep 4 to 6 strong canes. 1 to 2 hours per vine per year. Disease management is real. And I want to be straight about it. Powdery mildew and black rot are common in humid climates. Good pruning and air circulation prevent a lot. But if you're in the Mid-Atlantic or Southeast, humid summers. Warm nights, plan on 2 to 3 preventive fungicide applications from bud break through June. Copper fungicide, sulfur spray, neem oil. Organic options work well. This is real maintenance. The videos that say plant and ignore are describing California, not Ohio. American-type grapes like Concord have natural disease resistance. If you're in a humid climate and want minimal spraying, start here. Not European varieties. A proper trellis, posts, and 2 wires is required. Budget $100 to $150 for a 2-vine setup. Real first-year cost for 2 grapevines. $60 plants plus $130 trellis plus $20 spray supplies equals $210. not $60. But the 30-year return on $210 is extraordinary. Bonus tip: don't spray preventively if you haven't seen disease on your vines. Scout first. If you're in a dry western climate or have naturally good airflow, you may never need fungicide at all. Match your care to your actual conditions. Not worst-case scenarios. Let me give you the full, honest investment picture. Not the inspiring version. The real one. Plants: 2 blueberry bushes, $50. Asparagus crowns, 10-foot bed, $25. 2 elderberry shrubs, $50. Raspberry and blackberry row starts, $30. 1 rhubarb crown, $9. 2 artichoke starts, $20. 1 horseradish root, $5. 2 grapevines, $60. Infrastructure, the part most guides skip. Bird netting cage for blueberries, $50. pH adjustment kit and first-year sulfur, $20. Raspberry and blackberry trellis, $120. Grapevine trellis, $130. Mulch, fertilizer, miscellaneous soil amendments. Year 1, $50. Real total year 1 investment, $619. That's different from $249. And it's the right number. Year 2, most of that infrastructure is already in place. Ongoing annual costs: fertilizer, mulch, pH maintenance. Call it $60 to $80 a year. Now the returns? Year 3, $300 to $500 in food value at grocery store prices. Year 5, $600 to $900. Year 10 and beyond, $1,000 to $1,500 per year. Reliable. Payback on that $619 first-year investment, 3 to 4 seasons. Years 5 through 30, net positive, growing larger each year. Your blueberries are still producing in 2055. Your grapevines still producing in 2075. The asparagus bed still there when someone else owns this house. The horseradish, honestly, might still be there when the house is gone. I still go to the grocery store every week. But every year, the cart is a little lighter. Not because prices went down. They didn't. Because more and more of what I need is already waiting for me outside. This summer, I didn't buy blueberries, didn't buy raspberries or blackberries, didn't buy asparagus in April, didn't buy horseradish at Thanksgiving. The bill is quieter. Getting quieter every year. You remember the tombstone. He sowed. Others reaped. Most people read that as tragedy. I read it differently. He sowed, and the vine he planted in 1849 is still in the ground in Massachusetts. Still growing. Still fruiting. 175 years later. Still sending cuttings out into the world. Plants don't care about economics. They don't care about who profits. You put them in the ground. You give them what they need. They just grow. For decades. For lifetimes. For generations after yours. $619. 8 plants. A few seasons of patience. And then, quietly, the power shifts. Subscribe for more of this. New video every week. Drop a comment. Which plant are you starting with? If you've tried any of these and they failed, tell me what happened. I want to know. See you next time.